One Russian Marine brigade has probably been destroyed in Kursk, and another badly damaged. 4 months after racing to Kursk Oblast in western Russia to meet the surprise Ukrainian invasion of that border region, the Russian Navy's battered 810th Naval Infantry Brigade is finally calling it quits, at least for a little while. The 2,500-person brigade, one of at least 2 major Marine units supporting Russia's counteroffensive in Kursk, is reportedly heading from the western edge of the 250-square-mile salient to the quieter eastern edge and setting up camp in Plekhov, a village a short distance from the front line that the Ukrainians gave up in mid-December amid a costly but relentless assault by the North Korean 11th Army Corps. The guys from the 810th Brigade can have a smoke break, think about the eternal, collect their thoughts and prepare for future battles, one Russian blogger, stressing that the redeployment to Plekhov is a temporary rotation off the front line. Russia's naval infantry brigades are the main striking fist in the liberation of the Kursk region, steel brigades, but even they need a rest. But it's hard to argue that the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade and its sister unit in the Kursk counteroffensive, the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade, aren't worn out after months of mostly failed assaults on the western edge of the salient. The 155th Naval Infantry Brigade has probably already been destroyed and rebuilt many times, and is currently undergoing its latest replenishment after reportedly losing many of its people and much of its equipment to Ukrainian mines, drones, and artillery. The 810th Naval Infantry Brigade could be in an equally dire state. The brigade may have assigned 2 of its 400-person battalions to a costly attack on the Ukrainian garrison in Pogrebki, in the no-man's land on the northwestern edge of the salient, starting in November. It looks like last month's 2 battalion-sized assault breakthrough went nowhere and was eliminated, noted Mokleson, an open-source intelligence analyst who closely followed the Pogrebki battle. Adding insult to injury, the Ukrainians targeted the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade right before the purported rotation off the front line. A Christmas Day bombardment of a headquarters in the city of Lvov, just outside the Ukrainian-held salient, may have killed or wounded members of the brigade's command staff, an attack the blogger claimed had nothing to do with the decision to pull the brigade off the front line. A few days or weeks in Plekhov might not be terribly relaxing for the survivors of the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade's first 4 months in Kursk. The village is well within range of Ukrainian forces' heavy weapons. That the Kremlin must now rotate at least some of its exhausted units off the Kursk front line is indicative of the slow pace and high cost of the Russian counteroffensive in the oblast. Even with a 60,000 to 20,000 manpower advantage and the help of a 12,000-strong North Korean corps, the Russians have succeeded in recapturing just a quarter of the salient. This is quite pathetic, said Joni Eskola, a Finnish analyst. It's unclear how many Russians have died or been injured in Kursk since the Ukrainians invaded in early August. It's a bit more clear how many North Koreans have been killed and wounded. According to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the North Korean 11th Army Corps has lost a quarter of its troops since launching its first assaults 2 weeks ago. As both the Russian and North Korean armies use the same infantry-first tactics, there's a good chance the Russians have also suffered a 25% casualty rate. One of the lead units for the Kursk counteroffensive, the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade's losses might be even higher. However, in September 2024, The Russian Threat Index, or RTI, reached its highest level since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, 120 points. This is a 40% increase compared to the previous peak in October 2022. September 2024 increase is primarily driven by the Western approval for Ukraine to use long-range missiles on Russian territory. During September, there were 11 unique threatening statements, most of which consisted of nuclear and military threats. Russia warned that Ukraine's allies would be reduced to wet spots. Additionally, discussions about Russia's updated nuclear doctrine intensified, with Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov describing it as a signal to unfriendly nations. Moreover, the peak in the fall of 2024 differs from previous ones in its duration. It stays at a relatively high level for several months. For example, after the explosion of the Crimean bridge threat stopped almost immediately after the incident, November 2022 is the second calmest month according to our index, even despite frequent attacks on the Ukrainian energy system and the presence of this topic in Russian propaganda.